The man in front of us is the Emperor of Yankaibo, known for his temper and ruthless killings. Even his own sons want to run away from him, and his ministers think about quitting their jobs when they see him. Who would have thought that such a tyrant would be charmed by a little bundle of joy? With just one adorable cry, he started his journey of spoiling a child. This little bundle is our little princess from the Cold Palace. 2 years ago, on a stormy night, Lady Ning gave birth to the little princess after 10 months of pregnancy, but the imperial astronomers deemed her birth an ill omen. Everyone knelt outside the hall, begging the emperor to kill Lady Ning and her daughter to save the country. In the end, the emperor silenced the ministers, claiming they were tainted by the bad omen, and executed everyone present that day. He then banished Lady Ning and her daughter to the Cold Palace. No one dared to mention them again. Now, little Chacha is 2 years old and quite the expert at catching fish. One day, at the Cold Palace pond, Chacha was happily showing off the fish she caught. A maid on the shore anxiously called out, "Princess, come up quickly, be careful not to catch a cold." Attracted by a big fish, Chacha tried to catch it, but suddenly, she noticed her sister Xiangtse was missing. Chacha searched everywhere for Xiangtse but ended up getting lost. She suddenly spotted a handsome man in fancy clothes sitting there. "Wow, this eunuch is so pretty," she thought, tiptoeing closer. She tugged on his clothes and cutely asked, "Eunuch, have you seen my sister Xiangtse?" The tyrant emperor picked her up and shouted, "Since when can stray cats and dogs roam around in my imperial garden?" A eunuch nearby quickly knelt down and pleaded, "Your Majesty, forgive me, this child is so small I didn't notice her and disturbed your rest." In a fit of rage, the emperor threw Chacha to the eunuch Li Yu, saying, "Throw her into the pond and then go punish yourself." Scared, Chacha yelled, "Don't kill me." She struggled in eunuch Li's arms and suddenly jumped to the ground, staring at the emperor in a daze. She thought, "Why is the pretty man angry? Is he hungry? I get grumpy when I'm hungry too." Chacha then happily held up her fishing net and said, "Pretty man, you can have this fish." The emperor looked at her, completely baffled. Chacha grabbed a big fish and gave it to the emperor. Eunuch Li scolded her, but the emperor stopped him and told him to keep the fish. With a stern face, he said, "I'll take this fish, but next time, make sure an adult is with you when you fish. You could drown." Terrified by the emperor's scary look, Chacha backed away. "Why does it feel like he's cursing me?" she thought. The emperor reached out to ask her name, but Chacha thought he wanted her fish again. She quickly waved her little hand and said, "No, no, this fish is for my mom. I'll catch you another one next time." Just then, Eunuch Li reminded the emperor, "Your Majesty, it's getting late. You still need to meet with the minister and later visit the Empress Dowager." While they were talking, Chacha took the chance to run off with her fish basket, thinking, "If I don't run, he'll take my fish." Despite being so ruthless, this fierce emperor was dealing with an adorable, chubby little girl. Worried he might take the rest of her fish, Chacha ran off quickly but tripped on a stone and started crying. Even through the pain, she picked up her fish and tearfully said, "Where am I? I'm lost again." Suddenly, she heard her sister Xiangtse calling for help. Xiangtse was being used as a human target by Prince Sa-Yao. Chacha pointed at Prince Sa-Yao and said, "You're a bad guy. Don't bully my sister." Prince Sa-Yao, annoyed, said, "Where did this chubby kid come from, interrupting my fun? That's a serious crime." Xiangtse quickly explained, "Please, Your Highness, take it out on me, not Princess Chacha's." Shocked, Prince Sa-Yao thought, the emperor only has sons. Where did this princess come from? Chacha, angry at being called chubby, fiercely said, "I'm not chubby. I'm just really cute." Prince Sa-Yao couldn't resist and pinched Chacha's chubby cheeks. The little girl, on the verge of tears, cried out, "Let me go." He let her go and teased, "Wow, chubby cheeks get red so easily." Chacha rubbed her cheeks and thought, "This bad guy has called me chubby 3 times now. I need to say something back." Prince Sa-Yao then patted her head and said, "What are you looking at, chubby cheeks?" Gathering all her strength, Chacha yelled, "You're a smelly pig." Immediately, Prince Sa-Yao grabbed her and asked, "What did you call me?" The guards nearby were nervous, fearing that Prince Sa-Yao would use her as target practice for his arrows. Xiangzhao quickly knelt and pleaded, "Please, Your Highness, she's just a child. Forgive her." But Chacha's, getting angry, balled up her fists and started hitting Prince Sa-Yao, shouting, "Let me go, you smelly pig." To everyone's surprise, Prince Sa-Yao started laughing. The guards were stunned. This fearsome prince, known for his cruelty, was laughing instead of getting angry. He gently set Chacha's down and poked her cheek again, asking, "So, chubby cheeks, which palace are you from?" He thought to himself, the emperor doesn't have daughters. If she's not a princess, I'll just take this cute little girl with me. There aren't many like her in the palace. Chacha proudly said, "I'm the princess of the cold palace." Prince Sa-Yao was shocked. "So, you're the daughter of Lady Ming, who was banished to the cold palace by the emperor." He picked her up again and examined her closely. "If you ignore the chubbiness, you really do look like your mother. And your mouth looks just like the emperor's." Chacha's, pointing at Prince Sa-Yao with her fish, said, "Stop calling me chubby. I'm just chubby for fun, unlike you who's seriously ugly. I'm one of the 4 handsome men of the Yankai dynasty. You should show some respect." Chacha suddenly poked Prince Sa-Yao's nose and cutely said, "I'm not afraid of you." Prince Sa-Yao, in pain, let her go, and the guards rushed over in a panic. Proudly making a funny face at Prince Sa-Yao, Chacha grabbed Xiangzhou and ran off. This adorable little chubby girl had been bullied by the mean prince, and to escape, she poked him in the nose. With her maid's hand in hers, she ran back to the cold palace to grill fish for her mom. Chacha's even started the fire herself, getting soot all over her, never imagining that the fearsome Prince Sa-Yao could be poked in the nose. Lady Ning warned Chacha's that it was dangerous outside and told her to stay away from Prince Sa-Yao in the future. After promising her mom, Chacha's went back to grilling fish, thinking about Eunuch. She wondered if he would grill fish too. Chacha's mused about how gentle Eunuch's words were, unlike the mean prince who called her chubby. She couldn't help but wonder why people were so different. Meanwhile, the emperor was on his way to visit the Empress Dowager at Sinying Palace. On the way, he encountered Prince Sa-Yao, who didn't make way for him. The emperor mocked Prince Sa-Yao, who reluctantly let him pass. Just then, Prince Sa-Yao noticed that Eunuch Li was carrying a fish. He thought to himself, "That chubby girl had a fish, and now my brother has one too. Is this the new trend for women going out?" Then, the two of them went together to greet the Empress Dowager. Prince Sa-Yao joked, "Eunuch Li, that fish looks heavy. How about you let me carry it for you?" Eunuch Li replied, "This fish was a gift from a 2-year-old girl in the back mountain, and the emperor specifically told me to take good care of it." Hearing this, Prince Sa-Yao thought to himself, "That little chubby girl must be the one my brother met. But does he know she's his daughter?" They then went to greet the Empress Dowager. The emperor asked about her health, but she started crying and said, "If I don't get to hold a granddaughter soon, I don't know how many days I have left." The Empress Dowager mentioned a play she had seen called King of the Sea, and insisted that the emperor start visiting the concubines more often. If none of them pleased him, she would arrange a selection. Prince Sa-Yao joked, "Even if you want a granddaughter, you should consider my brother's health. What if he gets exhausted trying?" The emperor, looking uncomfortable, quickly suggested that the Empress Dowager should pressure their third brother instead. Maybe he would be the first to give her a granddaughter. Feeling set up, Prince Sa-Yao made an excuse and left, muttering about how his brother had tricked him. He thought, "I'll just use his daughter to please the Empress Dowager. Let's see if Chacha's can be won over by me." Prince Sa-Yao, feared by many, left Sinying Palace and wandered aimlessly until he heard someone cursing a young eunuch from the cold palace, complaining about delivering food and even spitting in it. Furious, Prince Sa-Yao confronted them, saying, "You have some nerve tampering with the master's food and cursing them. Let's see how I deal with you." He ordered the eunuch to be detained and forced them to eat the tampered food. After that, Prince Sa-Yao arrived at the cold palace, where he heard Chacha's playing hide and seek. Peeking through a crack in the door, he saw her playing until she got tired and her stomach growled with hunger. Hearing from the maid Chacha that the little princess had only drunk some soup so her mother could eat more and had told her mother she was full, but ended up being hungry all this time, Prince Sa-Yao thought, this little chubby girl is actually starving, and quickly ordered the guards to prepare some food. Just then, Chacha's heard a knock and thought it was Fan, but instead, it was Prince Sa-Yao. Pointing at him, she said, You're that stinky piggy. Chacha, hearing Prince Sa-Yao had come, quickly shielded Chacha's behind her, saying, Prince Sa-Yao, please don't blame the child. It was my fault. At this moment, concubine Ning arrived. Chacha brought Chacha's to her. Even in Chacha's arms, Chacha's wasn't behaving, glaring with her big eyes and pointing at Prince Sa-Yao, Mom, this is the bad uncle who bullied me and sister Chacha. And she even proudly said, Stinky piggy, I was the one who poked your nose. You're not allowed to bully my mom. When Prince Sa-Yao saw concubine Ning, he thought, this woman has been locked up in the cold palace for over 2 years, yet she still remains gentle and graceful. No wonder my brother was so fond of her. He then respectfully said, I was bored yesterday and met an interesting little chubby kid in the back mountain, so I came here to visit. I hope concubine Ning won't blame me. Concubine Ning replied politely, if the chubby kid you mentioned is indeed my Chacha's, I apologize on her behalf if she offended you. Prince Sa-Yao waved his hand and said, no worries, no worries. My brother put you in the cold palace 2 years ago. You must have suffered a lot. Concubine Ning calmly responded, since the emperor sent me to the cold palace, I've learned to accept their ups and downs. I can handle the consequences. If there's nothing else, please leave to avoid trouble. Prince Sa-Yao, looking smug, said, do you think I've ever been afraid of anything in the palace? To be honest, I came here for the little princess today. Then the guards came in, reporting that the imperial meal was ready. Prince Sa-Yao arranged a big table full of delicious food, saying it was an apology for bumping into the little princess yesterday. He promised that the cold palace would no longer be served subpar food from the imperial kitchen. Seeing so much good food, Chacha's eyes lit up, and she started drooling. Prince Sa-Yao looked at her with a fond smile and said, go ahead and eat. I made all this just for you. Chacha's turned around, hugged Prince Sa-Yao's neck, and gave him a big, sloppy kiss. Prince Sa-Yao was a bit shocked. What just happened? This chubby little girl actually kissed me. Smiling, he said to concubine Ning, I really like this kid. Would you mind if I took her to stay with me for a couple of days? Concubine Ning thought Chacha's might be too young to go with him and would probably be too shy. But then Prince Sa-Yao mentioned that there were lots of snacks at his place, and Chacha's could even bring some back. The moment Chacha's heard about all the snacks, she agreed right away. So, Prince Sa-Yao left with Chacha's. After leaving the cold palace, Prince Sa-Yao was still lost in thoughts of Chacha's kiss and didn't notice her running off after a butterfly, nor did he realize that the chubby little girl had disappeared. She ended up in the imperial garden, where the big tyrant was angrily scolding his ministers for not completing their tasks properly. He was so furious that he flipped a table, scattering snacks everywhere. At that moment, the big tyrant heard a voice in the distance, Butterfly, butterfly, wait for me. He saw Chacha's chasing a butterfly into the imperial garden. When she noticed the snacks on the ground, her eyes lit up, and she quickly ran over to collect them. Chacha's happily picked up the snacks, saying, today I got fruit, and now there are so many snacks too. She completely ignored everyone around her. The big tyrant asked Eunuch Li if something had just gone near him because it seemed familiar. Eunuch Li hurriedly checked and asked Chacha's, which palace do you belong to? Don't you know you're not allowed to wander around here? You could get in big trouble. Chacha's, disappointed, asked, so I can't eat these snacks because they fell on the ground? It was clear that food was all Chacha's cared about. Meanwhile, the big tyrant was thinking, isn't this the same little kid who brought me fish last time? Now she's here picking up snacks. How much does this chubby little girl love to eat? At this moment, the big tyrant told Chacha to look up. When Chacha turned around and saw him, she was so excited that she waved her arms and shouted, "Eunuch, it's you. We're meeting again." The ministers kneeling nearby were terrified, thinking this chubby little girl was asking to be executed by calling the emperor a eunuch. But the big tyrant wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled warmly and said, "You remember me?" Chacha, while stuffing snacks into her pockets, replied, "Of course I remember you. I gave you a fish last time. So, are you going to give me another one?" Eunuch Lin was shocked. The emperor accepted her fish, and now she wants another one? Doesn't she realize how lucky she is? The big tyrant, with a doting expression, said, "Come here." The ministers were stunned. In all their years serving the emperor, they had never seen him smile or speak so tenderly. Chacha walked over to the big tyrant and their eyes met. She thought to herself how handsome he was. Suddenly, the big tyrant grabbed her chubby little legs and shook her until all the snacks in her pockets fell out. Dizzy, Chacha was set down, and the big tyrant asked, "So, how are you going to pay for all the snacks you took? These are the finest treats made by the royal chef. They should be worth at least one fish, right?" Chacha waved her chubby hand and said, "The snacks were picked up by me, not taken from you, so you can't be unfair." Then she handed him a piece of fruit, saying, "Here, this is the best fruit I've ever had. I picked it just for you." Eunuch Lin quickly intervened, thinking the emperor hated sour things. The last time the emperor was given vinegar from Shaanxi, he had beaten the messenger half to death. Would Chacha be punished for this? The chubby little girl handed the sour fruit to the big tyrant, not knowing that he hated sour things. Surprisingly, the big tyrant didn't reject it. He actually accepted the fruit from the little princess. The ministers nearby were astonished. The big tyrant said to Chacha, "Do you want to trade this sour fruit for more snacks?" Chacha thought the big tyrant wanted another fruit, so she reluctantly handed him another one. Seeing Chacha's unwilling expression, the big tyrant's eyes welled up with tears. He thought, she must really love snacks to feel like losing a fruit is the end of the world. He then ordered Eunuch Lin to bring some treats from the royal kitchen. When Chacha saw the box full of snacks, her eyes lit up. The big tyrant said, "These are all for you. Are you happy?" Chacha replied, "Yes, I'm happy. Can I add the fruit to the snacks?" She bent down to pick up the fallen fruit, but the big tyrant knocked it out of her hand, saying, "These fruits look terrible. Just throw them away." Chacha, unwilling to part with her fruit, said, "If you throw them away, I won't have any fruit to eat." She carefully picked them up and put them back in her pocket. At that moment, the big tyrant noticed the little sheep design on Chacha's pocket and thought, she must have been born in the year of the sheep, so she should be around 3 years old now. He remembered that he once had a daughter who would have been around Chacha's age if she hadn't been considered a curse. He gently patted Chacha's head and called her Little Chubby. Chacha immediately pouted and said loudly, "I'm not chubby." She lifted her shirt to show her round belly, declaring, "This is just cute." The ministers watching found this adorable and wanted to take her home. The big tyrant quickly covered Chacha's shirt, affectionately tapped her forehead, and said, "From now on, don't lift your shirt in front of people, especially not in front of men. Understand?" But our little Chacha, being only 3 years old, didn't really understand these things. The big tyrant picked up Chacha and patiently explained to her that girls shouldn't show their bodies to strangers, including boys, and definitely shouldn't lift their shirts. He told her that her body should be covered by clothes and asked if she understood. Chacha cutely covered her eyes and said, "Covered." The big tyrant moved her hands away from her eyes and seriously repeated that she needed to cover her stomach and not expose the areas where clothes should be. He asked if she understood. The ministers below were shocked. They thought, the tyrant hates kids. Even his own princes didn't get this kind of treatment. Is this really the tyrant? The tyrant was known to be strict with children. If they weren't diligent, they had to kneel under the scorching sun and often copy texts as punishment. But with this little girl, he seemed to make exceptions. Chacha's happily responded, I understand. The tummy needs to be covered. The big tyrant poked her belly and said, good. Chacha's giggled because she was ticklish. The tyrant found her so adorable that he poked her belly again. Suddenly, Chacha's frowned. The tyrant worriedly asked, did I hurt you? Chacha's grabbed the tyrant's clothes and cutely said, pee pee. When Chacha said she needed to pee, the tyrant was puzzled. A nearby eunuch quickly explained that Chacha's needed to go to the toilet. The eunuch wanted to take this chance to hold the cute little girl, but the tyrant shot him a cold look and carried Chacha's himself. This action stunned the eunuch, thinking, wake up, your majesty. Have you ever been this attentive to your own children? Not long after, the tyrant came out holding Chacha's little hand and warmly asked if she felt better after going to the bathroom. Sa-Yao was looking for Chacha's, worrying that she might get in trouble with the temperamental tyrant and end up in danger. He decided it was safer to tell the Empress Dowager about her granddaughter. When Chacha saw a table full of delicious food, her eyes lit up and she started drooling, thrilled with all the tasty options. Even the tyrant fed her personally, finding her so adorable that everyone around wanted to take her home. Chacha's and the tyrant both liked the same dish. When a eunuch came to take it away, Chacha's quickly grabbed it and said, wait, I want more. The tyrant motioned for the eunuch to leave the dish, breaking his usual strict rules just to make sure Chacha's could eat her fill. He thought, if this little girl loves it, I can abstain from it for 3 months. She's totally worth it. Chacha's hugged the tyrant and said sweetly, you're the best. At that moment, the Empress Dowager and Prince Sa-Yao arrived. The Empress Dowager was delighted with the little girl, and as soon as she picked up Chacha's, her stomach growled. Chacha's reached out and said, I want to eat more, thinking about bringing some food back to her mom. The Empress Dowager misunderstood, thinking Chacha's called the tyrant a dog, and told the tyrant to have Chacha's call him father. The tyrant, embarrassed, explained that he found Chacha's in the imperial garden and didn't know which palace she belonged to. The Empress Dowager was shocked and immediately told the tyrant to adopt her, clearly very fond of Chacha's. Then they watched as Chacha's ate quickly, scarfing down her food. Being considerate, she even saved some to take back to her mom. The tyrant thought to himself, who is this little chubby girl's mom? She looks so familiar, like someone I know, maybe Consort Ling? Just then, Prince Sa-Yao called out from the door, little chubby girl. Chacha's ran and jumped into his arms, surprising both the tyrant and the Empress Dowager. The tyrant quickly asked, third brother, what's your relationship with this little one? Why is she so close to you? Prince Sa-Yao, with a teasing tone, replied, of course, because Chacha's likes me, right? Chacha's hugged Prince Sa-Yao's neck and happily said, yes, I like you, daughter. To provoke the tyrant, Prince Sa-Yao said, of course she is. As soon as he finished, the Empress Dowager laughed, how could this little girl be his daughter? They don't look alike at all. But she does resemble the emperor. She then picked Chacha's up. The Empress Dowager, secretly pleased, decided it was important to find a proper guardian for Chacha's. She asked, Chacha's, who do you want to be your dad? Here's the choice, on one side, you have the cool and handsome emperor, and on the other, the playful and slightly mischievous Prince Sa-Yao. The Empress Dowager held Chacha's up and asked her to pick someone to be her dad. Chacha's looked confused and uncertain. The Empress Dowager, smiling kindly, pointed to the tyrant and asked, do you want him to be your dad? He is the emperor, you know. Chacha stared at the tyrant for a long time and suddenly blurted out, no way. Prince Sa-Yao couldn't help but laugh, the emperor got rejected by the little chubby girl, she's so adorable. The Empress Dowager patiently explained, while holding a snack, it's not no way, sweetie. He's the emperor, wouldn't you like him to be your dad? Chacha's always remembered her mom's advice, never call someone else dad casually. Just then, the Empress Dowager picked up a piece of snack and waved it in front of Chacha's, tempting the little foodie, sweetie, if you pick one of these two to be your dad, you'll get lots of tasty treats every day. Hearing about the snacks made Chacha's drool. She thought, if I have snacks every day, Mom can have some too. Seeing this, Prince Sa-Yao brought over a big plate of treats and said, I've got some here too. The tyrant started to look nervous, worried that the little girl would choose Prince Sa-Yao. But then, Chacha looked at both of them blankly before suddenly reaching out to the tyrant and saying, eunuch. The tyrant felt a bit shy, but his heart was racing with joy. Prince Sa-Yao was shocked. Is this the power of blood relations? The Empress Dowager laughed and handed Chacha's to the tyrant. Go ahead and hug your little sweetheart. In the tyrant's arms, Chacha's called out, Daddy, in her baby voice, melting the tyrant's heart. He thought, I have so many sons who call me a dad every day, but this one is special. The Empress Dowager, touched by the scene, thought how much Chacha's resembled the emperor. This must be a gift from heaven, she thought. Prince Sa-Yao looked like he was about to cry. My happiness is gone, he thought, realizing that all his efforts were wasted once Chacha saw her real dad. Just then, Chacha yawned and said she was sleepy, and before anyone knew it, she was asleep in the tyrant's arms. As the tyrant turned to leave with Chacha, he said, since the little one is asleep, mother and third brother should go back. Too many people will disturb her. Prince Sa-Yao looked angry and was about to say something when the Empress Dowager covered his mouth. Tell me as soon as my granddaughter wakes up, she said. The tyrant was about to put Chacha down, but she clung tightly to his neck. Eunuch Li wanted to hold the adorable little girl, but the tyrant gave him such a glare that he didn't dare move. So the tyrant kept holding Chacha, watching her sleep with a tender expression. Eunuch Li cautiously reminded the tyrant that he had an appointment with the Minister of Rites soon. Before he could finish, the tyrant declared, I'm not seeing anyone today, and kicked Eunuch Li out. The eunuch quickly shut the door, thinking, this is the first time the emperor has shirked his duties just to be with a child. This little girl had never met her real father until now, and she had fallen asleep in the tyrant's arms, dreaming of delicious food. In her sleep, she mistook the tyrant's arm for a chicken leg. The next morning, when he woke up and found Chacha's missing, leaving only a small pouch embroidered with a lamb. Where could Chacha's have gone, he wondered. The tyrant ordered a search throughout the palace, but she was nowhere to be found. Enraged, he threatened to behead everyone. Just then, Eunuch Li nervously suggested that the only place left to check was the cold palace. The tyrant paused, considering the possibility that this little girl might indeed be his daughter, even though she was said to bring disaster to the nation. The tyrant quickly got ready to leave. Meanwhile, in the Hua Palace, Consort Shu sarcastically mentioned to Consort Hua that the emperor was looking for a 3-year-old girl, with rumors spreading that she was the daughter of a consort from the Cold Palace. Consort Hua scoffed, saying, so what? What trouble could a child cause? Consort Shu then tried to stir the pot by suggesting that if Consort Ning got involved, it might jeopardize the third prince. Consort Hua angrily slammed her teacup on the table and confidently declared, as long as I'm in the harem, Consort Ning won't be able to escape my control, and she can't harm my son. Consort Hua scoffed, even if the emperor is infatuated with Consort Ming, the officials would definitely protest. There's no way he'd go against all of them just for her. Seeing her scheme working, Consort Shu smirked, praising Consort Hua's wisdom. In her mind, Consort Shu thought, if I keep fanning the flames, Consort Hua won't let it go. She'll clash with Consort Ming, and I'll benefit from their conflict. Meanwhile, Chacha was chasing a butterfly, calling out, Butterfly, wait for me. She bumped into Prince Sa-Yao, who smiled and said, let me help you catch it. He quickly pinned the butterfly to a tree with a knife, showing it to Chacha. But seeing the still butterfly, Chacha burst into tears. No matter how Prince Sa-Yao tried, he couldn't console her. At that moment, the emperor and his entourage were on their way to the cold palace, but found Chacha crying instead. The emperor shoved Prince Sa-Yao aside, asking Chacha, who bullied you? I'll avenge you. Seeing Chacha's teary eyes, the emperor gently held her and ordered Prince Sa-Yao to be tied up. Chacha, still crying, explained, Uncle tried to catch the butterfly for me, but but it died, so I cried. Prince Sa-Yao sighed. Brother, you're jumping to conclusions again. Do you even know how many innocent people have suffered under your rule because of this? The emperor, still concerned, saw that Chacha wanted to bury her butterfly friend. He carefully helped her, much to the astonishment of eunuch Li and Prince Sa-Yao. Chacha, being kind-hearted, not only made a little grave for her butterfly friend but also clasped her hands together to silently mourn for it. The tyrant emperor, seeing this, felt very pleased and thought, I have such a kind daughter. Prince Sa-Yao, still tied up and in pain, pleaded, Brother, now that you know what happened, can you let your guards release me? It really hurts to kneel like this. But the tyrant emperor ordered him to reflect on his actions, refusing to let him up. Chacha, trying to help, patted her little chubby leg and said, Uncle Sa-Yao's legs hurt. The tyrant emperor, holding Chacha, looked at Prince Sa-Yao and said, Even my daughter is more understanding than you. Then he gently patted Chacha's bottom and said, Let's go eat, Chacha. Hearing about food, Chacha danced with joy while Prince Sa-Yao could only watch them leave. Later in the evening, Consort Shu passed by the garden and saw Prince Sa-Yao still kneeling. Curious, she asked, Why are you here? Prince Sa-Yao, eyes closed, calmly replied, I made my brother's daughter cry, so he punished me. Consort Shu, her face twisting with a smile, thought to herself, that girl must be Consort Ming's child. The emperor embarrassed Prince Sa-Yao in public for her. This can't be tolerated. Out loud, she said, This is not a big deal. I'll speak to the emperor and get your punishment lifted. But Prince Sa-Yao refused, saying, No need, consort. My brother's punishment is just. I shouldn't have used a knife in front of Chacha. If I had hurt her, I'd never forgive myself. So, I deserve to kneel. Consort Shu, surprised, thought, Prince Sa-Yao usually retaliates after being punished. Why is he behaving today? Could it be he's afraid because Consort Ming is coming out of the cold palace soon? It seems I underestimated her. I can't let that vixen rise again. Over in the Unity Hall, the tyrant emperor had a huge feast prepared and personally fed Chacha. The maids nearby were whispering among themselves, saying that even the princes didn't get this kind of treatment. Chacha was the first to be treated so well. The tyrant emperor looked at the cute little princess and thought, the annual Golden Melon Festival is coming up soon. I'll take this little one with me and let her enjoy herself. He then instructed Li Yu to arrange for a bath in the Tonga Pavilion. Only the emperor was allowed to bathe there, so the tyrant emperor gently asked, Chacha, are you full? Chacha happily patted her belly and said she was full. The tyrant emperor lifted Chacha and said, Let's go take a bath with Daddy. In the Tonga Pavilion, the tyrant emperor held Chacha and prepared for their bath. He tested the water temperature before putting Chacha down. The little one, never having seen anything like this, excitedly lifted her little dress and jumped into the water, splashing around and saying how fun it was. The tyrant emperor wasn't angry at all, instead, he warmly reminded Chacha to be careful. Chacha even showed off her dog paddle skills. The tyrant emperor clapped and praised her, saying, I didn't know my daughter could dog paddle. She's better than me. Hearing the praise, Chacha dived back into the water and started swimming again. Chacha had a blast in the Tonga Pavilion. After the bath, the tyrant emperor worried that Chacha might catch a cold, so he wrapped her in a towel. Just then, eunuch Li noticed a noise by the door and shouted angrily, Who's there? Show yourself! How dare you spy here? It was Xiangcao, who immediately knelt down, knocking her head on the ground, and explained, Servant Xiangcao means no harm. My lady heard that your majesty brought the little princess back and worried she might not know her manners, so she sent me to check. Please, your majesty, have mercy. The tyrant emperor looked at the maid Xiangcao and thought she looked familiar. He asked her who her mistress was, and Xiangcao, sweating nervously, replied that it was Consort Ning, who had been sent to the cold palace 2 years ago. Hearing Consort Ning's name, the Tyrant Emperor was silent for a moment before coldly asking if there was any other reason she was sent, like asking to lift the cold palace punishment. Xiangzhou shook her head, saying she was only sent to check on Princess Chacha's. By this time, Chacha's had fallen asleep in the Tyrant Emperor's arms. The Emperor, annoyed, thought to himself, Consort Ning is such a fool for not seizing this opportunity. Does she actually like living in the cold palace? He then angrily told Xiangzhou, go tell Consort Ning that I will personally take care of Chacha's from now on, and she won't return to the cold palace. Dismissed. Xiangzhou knelt down, repeatedly begging for mercy, but the Emperor, worried about waking Chacha's, ordered her to leave. The next morning, when Chacha's woke up, she saw two unfamiliar faces and hid under the covers. A young eunuch told her that the Emperor had gone to court and had ordered them to prepare breakfast for her and then accompany her to the royal garden. Hearing about food, Chacha's quickly agreed and went out with the two young eunuchs. While passing through the garden, Chacha saw a young boy who looked a lot like her dad sleeping by a rock. She thought he looked really handsome and couldn't resist poking his face, but he didn't react. Suddenly, she remembered her butterfly friend that stopped moving after being stabbed by her third uncle and wondered if the boy was dead. Chacha's told the young eunuchs that the boy was dead just as Consort Hua arrived, searching for her truant son. Hearing that her son was dead, she collapsed, crying and holding him, which shocked everyone around. The boy, Rin, groggily touched his head and asked, "Who died?" Chacha's, clapping and cheering, said, "Great, the little brother isn't dead." As soon as Rin saw Chacha's, his eyes lit up. Where did this cute little sister come from, he thought. Just as he was about to say hello, Consort Hua grabbed him by the ear and yelled, "You brat! Get back to the Moon Harmony Palace right now." Chacha's, seeing how Rin's ear was hurting, covered her own ears and advised him to protect them. Consort Hua paused and realized that this little girl must be Consort Ming's daughter. Since Chacha's had seen Rin sleeping, it wouldn't be good if she mentioned it to the Emperor, who clearly favored her. Trying to distract Chacha's, Consort Hua suggested they go to the Moon Harmony Palace, promising that there would be even more delicious snacks there. The two eunuchs refused to let Chacha's go, but when Consort Hua showed her some treats, Chacha's, being a little foodie, couldn't resist and happily agreed to go. Consort Hua instructed her attendants to take Chacha's to the Moon Harmony Palace and told the eunuchs to stay behind. Watching Chacha's leave, the two eunuchs exchanged worried looks. They needed to find help quickly, otherwise, Chacha's might be in danger. Would anyone really harm such an adorable little girl? Inside the Moon Harmony Palace, Chacha's happily munched on the snacks with both hands. However, Consort Hua's goal wasn't just to offer treats, but to make sure Chacha's didn't tell the Emperor about the third prince skipping class to sleep. The more the third prince looked at Chacha's, the more he liked her. Suddenly, Chacha's handed a piece of snack to the third prince and said in her sweet voice, "Big brother, this is for you." Surprised, the third prince thought, she must like me because she's giving me her snack. He then turned to Consort Hua and declared, "Mother, I want to marry this little sister." When Consort Hua heard this, she was shocked. This little troublemaker is just like her mother, causing nothing but problems. It only took a moment for her to captivate my son completely. If the Emperor actually locks them up in the cold palace and investigates what happened back then, the consequences could be terrible. It might even threaten my entire Sa-Yao family. Then, she slammed her teacup down and pointed a finger at Chacha's, shouting angrily, "I don't care how much of your mother's tricks you've inherited, but you better stay away from my son. Or else, don't blame me for being harsh." Chacha's, trembling with fear, hid behind her brother, crying out for her dad. Just as Consort Hua was about to have Chacha's thrown out, the third prince stepped in to protect her. Seeing her third uncle, Chacha's rushed to him with tears in her eyes, feeling like she had found a lifeline. Noticing how frightened she was, Prince Sa-Yao questioned Consort Hua about what she had done. Trying to play it cool, Consort Hua said, "What could I do to a little girl? I was just warning her not to follow in her troublemaking mother's footsteps." But deep down, she wondered if Prince Sa-Yao would stand up for the girl. To her surprise, Prince Sa-Yao, with a stern face, told her she's just a 2-year-old child. Consort Hua, what you're doing is over the line. Cutie kiss me again. Then he asked Chacha's why she was out so early and where she wanted to go. Uncle will take you wherever you want. Chacha's, being thoughtful, said she missed her mom and wanted to see her. Prince Sa-Yao agreed with a smile and took Chacha's to the cold palace, leaving the two eunuchs behind. As soon as they reached the cold palace, the little one couldn't wait to rush inside. Chacha's pushed the door open and ran to see her mother. Consort Ming, sick with worry because the tyrant wouldn't let Chacha's visit, lay in bed. Chacha's wiped her mother's tears and said, "Mommy, don't cry. I'll catch fish for you." Seeing her mom bedridden, Chacha's eyes filled with tears. Just then, the tyrant arrived. He wanted to take Chacha's away and scolded Prince Sa-Yao, "This is all you're doing." Prince Sa-Yao looked helpless, thinking, is it wrong for the little one to visit her mom? The tyrant picked up Chacha's and coldly said, "Come back to the Harmony Hall with me." As they were about to leave, Chacha's burst into tears, crying for her mom. In a babyish voice, she called out for her mom, "Mommy, Mommy is sick." The tyrant, having no choice, put Chacha's down and left. Wiping her tears, Chacha's thought to herself, "Daddy is mad." Seeing Chacha's cry so sadly, Eunuch Li handed her a handkerchief and gently said, "Little princess, don't cry." Chacha's shook Eunuch Li's arm, pleading, "Don't let Daddy be mad." The tyrant watched Chacha's and wondered, have I been too harsh on this child? Chacha's nervously watched her dad, the tyrant, not daring to make a sound. Dad was still mad, what should she do? Suddenly, she started crying again. The tyrant reached out his hand and called Chacha's over. Happily, she ran towards him on her short little legs, but in her rush, she tripped over her own feet. Seeing Chacha's fall, the tyrant felt really bad. He quickly went over to help her up and gently asked, "Where did you get hurt?" "Let Dad see." Chacha's lifted her skirt with trembling hands, revealing a noticeable scrape on her leg. The tyrant felt guilty, thinking, how did she get hurt so badly? Understanding, Chacha's quickly waved her hands and said, "Dad, don't worry. It doesn't hurt anymore." The tyrant looked at Chacha's, thinking, this little one is so badly hurt yet she's still trying to comfort me. He quickly ordered someone to get some medicine. The tyrant held Chacha's in his arms and softly said, "It's all Dad's fault." But Chacha's touched his face with her chubby little hand and said, "Daddy, don't be sad. It's my fault for being clumsy." The tyrant replied, "My daughter isn't clumsy. She's the smartest girl in the world." Just then, the Empress Dowager arrived. The tyrant, worried she would find out about Chacha's injury, tried to avoid her. At the same time, Eunuch Li came running in with the medicine. The Empress Dowager was surprised. "Medicine? Who got hurt?" She looked at the tyrant, who seemed fine, and then asked, "Is my precious granddaughter hurt? Let Grandma see." The tyrant ignored the Empress Dowager, moving Chacha's aside and calling Eunuch Li over with the medicine. Both of them started arguing over who would apply the medicine until the Empress Dowager pushed the tyrant away, saying, "Sweetie, let Grandma put the medicine on for you, okay?" Chacha's was stunned seeing them argue but agreed to let the Empress Dowager help. She gently applied the medicine, saying, "It won't hurt anymore, little one." As Chacha's watched, she remembered her mom doing the same and a tear dropped onto the Empress Dowager's hand. Startled, the Empress Dowager thought she had hurt Chacha's, but really, Chacha's was just missing her mom. She wondered, when can I see Mom again? Chacha's, with tears streaming down her face, hugged the Empress Dowager and said, "It's not your fault, Grandma. I just miss my mom. She's sick, and I want to catch some fish for her." The Empress Dowager, feeling sorry for Chacha's, asked, "Sweetie, who is your mom? Which palace is she from?" Chacha's, wiping her tears, replied, "I'm the little princess from the Cold Palace." The Empress Dowager was shocked, thinking to herself, "The Cold Palace? You're noble consort Ning's daughter, which means you're my granddaughter." Excited, she picked up Chacha's and said to the tyrant, "Is this really your noble consort Ning's daughter?" The tyrant calmly responded, "Mother, Chacha's is indeed our daughter, but since I sent noble consort Ning to the cold palace, I decided to raise Chacha's myself." The Empress Dowager, overjoyed, lifted Chacha's and exclaimed, "Our dynasty finally has a little princess." But Chacha's, with tears still streaming, said, "I want my mom. I need my mom." The tyrant continued to read his documents without reacting. The Empress Dowager, holding Chacha's, scolded him, "Even if you brought Chacha's here, you should let her adjust. Don't you feel any pity seeing her so upset? What if she gets sick from crying so much? I won't forgive you." Chacha's reached out her tiny hand and called, "Daddy, hug me." She jumped into the tyrant's arms and tearfully said, "Daddy, get some fish for Mom. I won't eat, I'll just drink vegetable soup." The tyrant finally softened, wiping her tears and saying, "I can afford more than just vegetable soup for you." He then remembered the first time he met Chacha's. He thought, what kind of life did my daughter have in the cold palace that she had to catch her own fish to eat? Chacha's loved eating meat, but when they first met, she generously gave the tyrant a fish. The tyrant seriously asked her, "If I lived in the cold palace, would you still give me the fish you caught?" Chacha's instantly became cautious, thinking, "Is Dad trying to trick me into giving him my fish again?" When Chacha's didn't answer right away, the tyrant urged, "Answer me now." Chacha's pouted and refused, but the tyrant tugged at her mouth, demanding an answer. Shaking her head like a rattle, Chacha's remained silent until the Empress Dowager stepped in, scolding the tyrant, "Don't bully my granddaughter. Aren't you still my son?" Frustrated, Chacha's blurted out, "Daddy's mean. I'm not giving Daddy any fish." The tyrant felt as if a million arrows had pierced his heart and sternly asked, "What are you saying? I agreed to let you visit your mom, and you won't even share a fish with me." Chacha's eyes widened, "I can see Mom?" The tyrant gently held her and asked, "So, will you give me some fish now?" After a moment of hesitation and a long stare at her dad, Chacha suddenly kissed the tyrant. Her mood brightened, and the tyrant, now happy, picked her up and said, "Let's go see your mom in the cold palace." As they approached the cold palace, Consort Shu saw them and hurried to stir up trouble in the Palace of Harmony, telling Consort Hua that the emperor was planning to release Consort Ning from the cold palace. Consort Hua panicked, both of them buzzing around like ants on a hot pan. At the cold palace entrance, Chacha's excitedly jumped down and ran into her mom's arms. Just as Eunuch Li moved to intervene, the tyrant stopped him. Consort Ning quickly came forward to greet the tyrant, who thought to himself, "She's clearly still sick, yet she came out like this. When will this woman learn to take care of herself?" With a stern face, the emperor told Lin Fei to get up, then walked straight into the cold palace. Chacha's happily held Lin Fei's hand and said, "Mom, let's go with Dad." Seeing them walk in laughing and talking, the emperor felt a bit jealous. How could this warm moment not include him? He quickly called Chacha's over and tried to lure her with food, saying, "Come here, and Daddy will give you some meat."